This, I'm ashamed of my words and my deeds, okay? This is the tier list that I made a month ago, or a month and a half ago. I had no time. I went super quick, and I have to be honest with you, I made a lot of mistakes. You know, I had like less than a minute for each one that was available, especially at the end. I had like 5 seconds. I gotta tell you right off the bat, the worm at the very bottom is insane. The cat in the bottom tier is insane. This may surprise you. The rabbit in the bottom tier is insane. And then I'm looking at some other stuff. Duck in A tier is unconscionable, okay? Now, you might be saying, like, how can you say this? Like, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. I had so many 10 pieces this weekend. I only tweeted like a third of them. I got tired of trying to figure out how to take screenshots on my Android, okay? But this is insane. This is nonsensical. I have solved Super Auto Pets. I'm probably, if they ever release like stats, you're gonna see guest dash whatever my phone account number is. I'm averaging like, I would say somewhere between like 7.8 and 8.5 wins per round right now. I'm going buck wild, okay? Now, we're going to redo the tier list in favor of this new knowledge. I need to reset it real quick, and then we will we'll begin again. Here we go with the Super Auto Pets tier list, okay? We got S, A, B, C, D. The game has begun. We start with an ant. An ant, as far as I'm concerned, you got to consider where you get it in the game. Obviously, okay, obviously, there are a few top tier animals in your first shop. Your first shop meta, like here's my current meta for Super Auto Pets is buy whatever you need to buy to win early. Rather than like waste your time doing setup turns that could easily end up with you losing anyway and then having not enough HP to make it through the later rounds, just actually buy things that win you rounds against people that are trying to big brain their way to like 4 wins, okay? You win early, it's so much easier to get to 10 wins. So how do you win early? There's a few units. One of them is Ant. Ant is insanely good, at least on, I'm talking about free-to-play mostly, but Ant is insanely good early. 1 or 2. Any more than that, you're getting, because you're going to need some units with some HP. Mosquito. Underrated and insane early. Because, you know why Mosquito's good? The Mosquito is good because the Ant is good. And the Mosquito kills ants. It kills horses. It's very good stuff. The fish is a 2-3, which is great stuff. The stats are good to begin with. I would say a beaver and an otter are also very good early units. Pig, I never take. I would rather roll. Horse, I never take anymore, quite frankly. And duck, I think, is possibly like the worst unit in the game. I know I put it in the A tier last time, but I was dumber back then, okay? Anyway, let's get started. Ants. Honestly, I feel like you put Ant in the S tier, and I know that this seems like crazy talk. But I really, in the first shop, I should say, there's nothing I would rather see. The only thing I would say is that I would not put it in, like if I got 3 ants, I would be slightly annoyed. I would probably buy 2, freeze 1, roll, and then buy the highest stat unit that was not an ant that was available, and then I would get ready to combine them on turn 3. But ants is a must-buy if you see it in the shop. You need to have 1 early. Hatching Chick, okay. Hatching Chick, honestly, I've come to respect this unit a lot. I think you, not every unit needs to be upgraded, okay? Again, you're not, I think that I've been guilty of this as well, but I also see it in chat a lot. People are like, oh, it doesn't scale well. Well, it doesn't need to scale well if you put a Hatching Chick behind a 7/7 Swan that has garlic armor on, and as a result of that 12/12 unit with garlic armor, you win 3 or 4 rounds in the mid game. Then you sell this shit, you buy a Scorpion or something, and you get to 10. So I really think Hatching Chick is like a 3 cost basically double Cupcake, and you don't level it up. Like, I think this is a great 3-cost unit. I would put it in the A tier for sure. The only reason I wouldn't put it in the S tier is that it falls off late, but, you know, that's fine. Badger, I ran into a few Richard Hammer builds this weekend, and I always love to see him. So this is not, like, the Richard Hammer build, as I understand it, is like self-pain in order to hurt the enemy more. So you have like a whale that eats a hedgehog. It does 2 damage to everything. And then you have things on your side like Blowfish that have a lot of HP and then do damage when they get hit. And then they kill your whale. You spit out another hedgehog. It hits everything. I think the Badger, I would personally put it in the C tier, if you'll excuse me here. I do not wish to create a QR code for this page. I don't like to see it as my first tier 3 unit when I level up something to level 2. But it's I will buy it if it shows up and I got nothing else to do, and then put a B on it for 1 to 2 rounds. I'm okay with that. I don't think it's useful beyond that, but still. Now a bat. Previously, I think, and I want to be clear, the bat is moving down. It's not based on the nerf, actually. It's just based on how I see it in the meta. Because the nerf to the bat, it's 1 to 2, or like it's 1 and 2 now instead of 1 and 3. And weakness is now 3 extra damage instead of 5. The benefit of the bat is that it replaces equipment. And equipment, especially in the mid game, is goated, man. Like, so many times, especially this weekend, I know I'm talking about the mythical weekend, but so many times I basically had like 1 strong unit with either garlic or meat at the front, and then like a crab with meat just behind it, and the other 3 units on my squad didn't even matter because equipment was just that good. But I would say, for me personally, I think the bat is like the highest of high A tiers right now. It's indispensable as an option to replace equipment on the enemy. It is RNG dependent. That's the only thing that keeps it from being in the S tier, I think, but it's still really good. Now the beaver. I think I've said some regrettable things about the beaver in the past. I think it's okay. I don't think it's incredible, but I think it's a mid-tier, tier 1 unit. It's a 2/2, and it gives basically +0, +2 when you sell it. I think it's a very acceptable unit to roll in your first shop. You'll never use it after that, but in your first shop, I think it's totally fine. Otter is better, but we'll get into that. Beaver is the worst unit in the game. Not possible. Duck exists. Green Ladybug. And I know the duck is like so controversial, man. I see a lot of duck supporters like in chat. I'm telling you that I played probably 15 matches of Super Auto Pets this weekend. I think I had a 100% win rate against duck. It's not good. You to get the +1/+1 on all shop units is good. Don't get me wrong, but you're sacrificing like 25 to 50% of your HP to make it work. Your duck build, I know you're like, there's a chance that I could draw this round, and then I get great scaling. If you go up against my early game squads, you're going to lose 100% of the time. Just you spending 3 gold on a 1/2 duck is going to get your ass beat by ant mosquito fish. There's no chance. You mathematically, there's no chance. You're done. Maybe in the mid game, you could buy a duck and maybe get a trigger off that on a buffalo or a dog. Sell the duck, and then you get half a can for everything in the shop, and then buy something from that shop. But I'm just saying, personally, if you run the duck on your squad and you don't have like 3 incredible units at the front, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. At least you might win your next 4 rounds. You're going to lose against the one that we play specifically. Green Ladybug. I have to be straight up with you. I used to think this was top tier. That's when I thought the only thing that mattered in the early game were stats. I also thought Fish was great for this reason. I still think Fish is pretty good, but I think you put the Green Ladybug. It's around Beaver tier. I've come around on Food Build, don't get me wrong, but I still feel like these two are actually pretty close. A 2-3 does better than a 2-2, but the sell on the Beaver does better than the effect on the Green Ladybug, I think. Anyway, Paul McCartney. Bison has actually become one of my most used units on this renaissance that I went through. And there's like a whole flowchart, like a kink in the garden hose that led to this happening, okay? Previously, I thought the Bison was doo-doo because I very rarely got to tier 3 units. Lately, I've been focusing way more on like, hey, whatever unit I get to tier 2 first, which usually happens on like turn 3, then you just keep that in the squad, give it some garlic armor instead of selling it immediately. That way it can consistently stick around. And then you're likely to get it to level 3. Then you get a Bison, and all of a sudden, you know, like Bison plus Monkey at the front, this thing's getting to be a freaking, you know, 20-20 by the 6th turn or something like that. You put garlic armor on it, you put a crab behind it, like you're off to the races. The problem is, it's hard to guarantee, like I oftentimes keep this thing frozen in my shop for like 3 turns. But I still think it's good. I'm going to put this in the low A tier. But if you get it to pop, I genuinely think is S. It's down here because it's hard to get it to pop. Blowfish, honestly, probably I was guilty of overrating the Blowfish for a long time, in my opinion. I think that 3-5 is okay stats. You're probably going to get like 2 triggers out of it. And it's a lot of fun. It is very fun, but I actually have come to see Blowfish more as a C tier unit, quite frankly. Especially now that you can't get like a free trigger off of it with Melon Armor. I would probably put it ahead of the Badger, because at least like, I mean, the Badger is just funny. But especially in the late game, the Blowfish, the meta, maybe it's not the meta, but like the climate of the game, when you get to like round 10, your opponent's first animal is just like a 50-50. So what's the point? Like, what does a Blowfish give you that like another unit doesn't give you? In the mid game, I think it's okay, but I would still, I mean, I would rather just invest in stats, honestly, on like on something that I got earlier, I guess. But anyway, this one's still a little in flux, but it has suffered in my Icy Veins power rankings lately. I also think I'm honestly might be inclined to put the Bluebird into the D tier, but I'm gonna keep it at like middle C for now. I really think that the change that has happened with my life in Super Auto Pets is to focus on winning rounds instead of like scaling one unit to unbelievable status. And I think that you do not win rounds when you have a 2-1 that gives like +1 to a unit that you're probably not going to keep around forever anyway. You can roll a 2-1, but in my opinion, it has to be an ant. That's the same reason, by the way, like you can't roll more than 2 ants, in my experience at least. Because, you know, 2 units on your squad that have 1 HP. It's the same reason, like, I don't know if you've been playing the game lately, but horse builds are getting shit on. And the reason, like, it doesn't matter if you have 3 horses and 2 crickets with bees on them. You know, if the attack doesn't do that much, you run up against 2 mosquitoes, you know, 2 of your horses die, all of it. So many times I run up against somebody that had, like, the perfect horse shop, and they don't even get to, like, my 3rd unit. Like, I'm telling you that the horse build is on its way out. It's bait. So I think you can roll a 2-1. But HP is really important in the early game, which is why, like, an ant has to be 2-1. Otherwise, like, it would be the strongest unit in the game. But a bluebird at 2-1 with limited upside, I don't think is good enough. I think you lose too much by not taking either like a 2-3, like the beetle or the fish, or like a 1-2, like an otter that also gives a +1/+1 to something that will then live to maybe trade with 2 units instead of just 1. Anyway, buffalo, it's a strictly better dog, but I think I honestly think this is like a C tier unit. And the dog is going to end up being higher than C tier, so it's going to be like a weird take, but you got to hear my methodology. It being a tier 4 means that it's in competition with stuff like a hippo, for example. And a hippo at 4-7 is more interesting to me than I think what starts as a 4-4 buffalo. I also feel like late in the... It depends on the way you're... 5-5? Okay. But the way that you're going to run the timing of the game, when you're going to start running a buffalo, usually means that you have much more attachment to your squad than you do when you get a dog, which happens typically much earlier. So as a result, you know, the ability to like buy and sell is a little bit compromised. I tend to think that, I mean, if you got this as your first tier 4, or you had a dog as well, then I would be like, that's pretty sick. But if you get it late, it's kind of used. You know what? Yeah, I think you've sold me a little bit. I'm gonna keep it in the B tier. I don't think it belongs. When I just look at this, I don't think it belongs down here. Like, these are things. If I saw one of these at, you know, like, and it bodied me, I would be like, that's a surprise. If I saw this and it got a draw with me, I would be like, that's fine. If I saw one of these and it bodied me, I would be like, you know what, fair play. That makes sense. It is nice that it doesn't need the summon space, but all right. So camel is an interesting one. I think I overrated. Here's my problem with camel, kangaroo, peacock, elephant, and let me hydrate before I say this, because it's a little spicy. All of these animals require, like, it's a nuclear football situation. All of the animals have to turn their key at the same time. Like, in order to get... A camel is probably amongst the best of them, to be honest. But, like, in order for this build to work, it has to have everything. You know, the camel has to... The elephant has to hit a camel. The camel has to pass its HP back to a peacock or a kangaroo. And then maybe it passes it back to a peacock. And then the peacock has so much HP that the kangaroo behind it then gets to go. So I feel like you're kind of like shoved into this meta where you're like, you know, just re-rolling for these 3 or 4 animals over and over. And I genuinely think it loses to stats. Like, I think if, you know, okay, so you got like a 5-8 camel with garlic armor, and I got a 10-12 otter that I've been upgrading since the first turn. It gets no triggers. You just get killed. So big whoop. Now, of course, you can easily construct a situation in your mind where you could beat any build just by creating an equivalent build on the other side. But I just don't feel like... I think that the camel is one of the most fun builds to have. The problem is the hurt trigger is unreliable because you have to get hurt but not killed. Which is why Melon Armor with hurt was kind of sick, because you could guarantee 1 trigger. But, like... It's just so many times you will get a camel, and then it'll have 6 HP, and then you'll go up against an enemy that has like a 1-4, or I guess a 2-4 turtle with meat on it, and it just kills you in 1 hit. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm ass. I'm not saying you can't make it work, just that I think it's pretty inconsistent overall. So I would say the camel, I would probably put it in the middle C tier. I think you can make it work. I would probably be more excited to have one than a blowfish, but I might consider, because I think like like a blowfish is really hard to get it to work with any upside on the hurt trigger. You just rather have a snake because the unit in front of it attacking is so much easier. Obviously, you'd rather have a snake. It's like 6 tiers later. But a camel, you can run the camel with other stuff, in my opinion. Like, you can run this without it being part of a hurt build. But anyway. Caterpillar. I don't know why I put Caterpillar in A tier last time. I feel like I was just reading chat and I was like, yeah, this sounds good. I feel like I only started to understand the Caterpillar like within the past week or so. No, I'm not saying it's not A tier. I feel like I was stealing somebody's valor by just putting it in the A tier last time without actually fully understanding it. But I will still say, though, I don't think Caterpillar's S tier. I think it's A tier. And I think it probably... I'm gonna sidle it right between these two right here. I mean, there's obvious, okay? There's obvious things about this. If you get it early, it's insanely good. But even if you get it, you know, instead of getting it on turn 3 or turn 5, if you get it a couple of turns later, I still think it's good. And the fact that it guarantees you levels is incredible. I really think that the current meta, at least as I see it in Super Auto Pets, is that you want to invest in, especially early when scaling many units is not, like all units at the same time is not possible. You want to invest in getting one unit insanely strong. Like one 25-25 with equipment can wipe a squad of people that are trying to go like, you know, hey, we got like 5, 6, 6s. Even though the stats are lower, you know, you can still just go buck wild with that. And then the Caterpillar is awesome because it just piggybacks on whatever unit you scaled. So it's basically, this is like I mean, you already know this, but it's like a clone. And you don't get that too much. Like, it's a crab that also takes the attack, which is amazing. So I think this is really good. But when you get it later, you're like, you know, it creates, this can lose you a game when it shows up later, just by you being a little ambitious, as we've done many times. Now, I had the cat in D tier last time. This is idiotic. I just was ignorant. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't respect food at all. Now, again, just put yourself in the mindset of what I've been saying, okay? If the meta in the game, at least that I've been using recently, is to get one unit or 2 units insanely strong and then worry about the rest of the squad. Which, by the way, is like, that's why there's so many units that are good to buy a 1 of at level 1. That, like, that's why investing in a couple of units instead of trying to get your whole squad leveling up evenly is fantastic. Because, like, you know, oh, congrats, you got like a 40-40 Hippo with garlic armor. Cool. I spent 3 gold on a Scorpion. Now your Hippo's fucking dead, and my 50-50 Mosquito is like running buck wild on you. So if the problem-solving goal is to get to the point where you have 1 to 2 units that are insanely strong, okay? Then what the cat is in the A tier. Maybe not S, because I think it's part of the engine instead of the wheels. Maybe that doesn't make any sense, but I think you put it in the, like, in the beauty of this. So what does a cat do for people who have not seen it? And probably I would say you're like right around here, but it doubles the effects of foods that affect health and damage. The beauty of this is when you get, like, let's just say, like, imagine this is your squad, okay? Like, imagine these 5 are your squad. What you can do is you can sell your hatching chick, buy a second cat, and then use this bat spot for cows. And then all of a sudden, you buy a cow, you get 2 milks, you apply, each milk is going to give, I think the milk would give 6 each. I don't think it would give 8. like a double-double. I think it would give +2, +2, +2, +2, +2, +2. So then you got 12, 12 on your Bison, which is also giving 12, 12 to your Caterpillar. But even if you're not giving it to the Caterpillar, maybe this is like a dog or something, you know, every time you do this, you're getting 12 permanent stat ups. And then when you decide like, oh, I want to have like, a tiger on this build somewhere, then you just combine your cats, put the tiger in wherever you want the tiger, and you're good to go. Like it's like you're using it for like temporary pivots, but it does so much. Like this is huge. It's an ideal situation, but it happens all the time. And this is why you win early, or try to. That way, you know, if you're rolling 2 cats and 2 40/40s up at the front and you lose a round, you're like, okay, big whoop. This is why I have, 3 HP left right now. This is why instead of buying ducks early to try to prove that I have a 99 IQ, I just had a 150 IQ and bought a beaver instead. Now, anyway. Plus, I mean, this is, again, ideal situation, but cat with worm, oh my god. You could get like a turn 12 worm, and if you have either 2 cats or like a cat and a cow, like it's going to the freaking moon, man. It's going to the moon. So the chicken is like a weird dragon. Every time you buy a tier 1, it makes all current and future shop animals +1/+1. I'm just going to be honest. Maybe this is like setting the seed so that we can, setting the stage, I should say, so that we can do another tier list later. But like, I don't even know if I've ever bought one of these. I'm not saying that it is a D tier. I'm more just saying, like, I don't know if I've ever... I guess I would love to try it. Let's put it in here for now. I'm just pleading ignorance. I'm not going to give it a tier space just based on intellectually, in theory, I think this is how it plays. Let's put it here, and maybe if we get a chance in the future, we'll pop it down somewhere. And we'll learn something. Squirrel, I underrated before by thinking it was literally useless. It's just almost exclusively useless. I've been really like advocating food build lately. I've been running food build 75% of the time in the late game, especially. But the squirrel, even with that, is just total dog water. Like it's there's so many problems with it. Like, okay, it shows up. First off, it clears out your whole damn animal shop, which can be bad. But then on top of that, so many of the pills are not what you want from food build. Like, or so many of the foods are not what you want from food build. Like, what you want if you get a squirrel, you're buying it because you have a rabbit or you got some cats or something like that, or you got a seal maybe, I guess. But you get like honey pill, garlic, sushi pill, honey. And you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll take some sushi and then move on. Because like if it guaranteed that it only gave you food to eat, that could be something. Maybe, although I haven't really thought through the greater consequences. Maybe there's some psychos out there that use squirrels later to try to get more melon armor or something. But or they need to discount the food by 1 or by 2, I think. Otherwise, like it's just so consistently useless. I think it's just kind of bad. Like I get it, but even in food build, I think it's kind of dog. Now, this will probably not surprise you. I think that the cow is... I honestly look at it... It's weird, but I kind of feel like it's S tier. It's like literally the only animal in the game where whenever it shows up, I stop and go, can I fit this into my squad? It's either S or high A. So the problem with the cow is that it is not going to do anything for you as an animal, and you need space. But the way I've been playing the game lately, which is like focus on scaling 1 or 2 units, and then the other 3 are just there to funnel stats up or funnel some kind of effect up, I usually have space for it. I mean, it's just very good to begin with. Like you get for 2 gold, you get a 4/4 that you can put out there however you want. Most of the time, you're going to put it on the same unit, obviously. It also gives a trigger, you know, if you have a buffalo. It gives a trigger if you have a dog, which, you know, happens fairly consistently. If you got a worm, then you get the food triggers on the worm from from putting the milk on the worm. Like, it's very good stuff. I tend to buy it on, I would say, the majority of my runs. And honestly, like, it's not necessarily that bad. Like a 6/8. Look, I'm just gonna say it. The way the game's been going for me lately, if you get to like your 4th animal on turn 12 in a battle, you already lost. Like, usually the battles are not determined by like whose 4th unit is better. Usually they're determined by like who's, you know, 50-50 had the right equipment matrix in order to survive long enough to wipe the whole team. So it doesn't really matter. Like, this thing should never have to fight in the first place. You buy it for the on-buy effect. Anyway, I gotta tell you, this crab, here's the thumbnail, okay? Most underrated unit in Super Auto Pets history. Everything fell into place for me once I started not selling all of my early game units and instead at least picking 1, maybe 2 to keep and level and stat up. Then you sell the beaver. The beaver gives a +1 HP to the unit at the front. Okay, so all of a sudden let's say you got a 4. Well, that's not realistic. Let's say you got a 10/10 otter on turn 4. That's not impossible. That's pretty common. You buy a crab. You put the crab behind the otter. You put meat on the crab. Now you have a 10/10 that dies and gives you a 4/10 that's actually a 9/10. This thing will go buck wild on you. And then you get to keep it. Hey, the Snacrifice. Thank you for the gifted subscriptions, by the way. Thank you. Much appreciated. If you you get a monkey later, you sell tier 2 fish. You put a monkey at the back. Now your otter's getting +2/+2 every turn, plus whatever else you're able to give it. Your crab's getting that extra HP. It's got less work to do. It's got more to work with. Like, it's very good. I honestly think the crab is like an A tier unit. I genuinely think that health determines who wins in Super Auto Pets. I think it's much more health focused than attack focused, which is also why I like horses dog shit. Like, oh, congrats, you got a 9/1, you know, fainted cricket or whatever. Oh, it died to nothing. Who would have thought? It died to my 1/1B. So I think that having a way to duplicate the health of a unit and then just putting your crab behind that unit and then giving it meat is going to do an insane amount of work for you. I think, like, the crab, I honestly think, is A tier. And I think it's above Hatching Chick. Maybe we'd put it below Cat, but I definitely think it's up here. Now, cricket. I have very, very strong opinions about the early game. This is where I've spent a lot of my time. There have been, I think the cricket is not unplayable, but it is a low tier playable early game unit. I would say that probably places it in the low B, high C. I would prefer to not ever play one of these early. You know, in that case, I think we got to say it's probably in the C tier. It's going to offend some people. I know this is well liked, but it's the stats are, I mean, the stats are not bad, right? Like, it's technically a 3-2, I guess. Yeah, that's right. I think a 3-2 is much worse than a 2-3 most of the time. It's a 2-3. Is it? No, is it? Because isn't it a 2-1-1-1? Impulsive Veins, thank you as well. Thank you. It's a 1/2 that becomes a 1/1. Oh, okay. So 1/2 that becomes a 1/1. Well, it shows what I know. I still think it's bad though. Like I would rather have a fish. I would rather have, I mean, a mosquito. Absolutely, it's not even close. Uh-oh, Richard Hammer's in chat. The other reason, by the way, that I like, you may disagree, Richard, by the way. One of the other things I love about having a 2/3 is that it's not even just about the 2/3. It's about the fact that if you get something that you'd like to fit and you have 2/2/3s, you combine them and the 3/4 is just like, it's going to solo the enemy team early on. It's insane. But I also feel like the cricket and the Badger Bee, maybe the Badger Bee is a unique situation, but I feel like people put the cricket at the back, and then when the 1/1 cricket wins them the game, they're like, the cricket won me the game. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, if you had, at least if all other things were equal, if you place that cricket at the front, then maybe instead of a 1/1 cricket at the back, the way the battle would have shaken out, you would have had like a 2/1 otter or something. I guess that's impossible, but you get the idea. A 2/1 beaver or something. You wouldn't have been like, oh, the beaver won me so many games. You would just be like, my squad's good. But when the cricket dies and it spawns another one, it like triggers something that scrambles the human brain. That's like, my cricket play did it. One thing, the only thing I'll say that's nice about a cricket is that it is I guess it's a 2/3, but it is a 2/3 where if something does 6 and your cricket only has 2 HP, at least it doesn't kill with 6. You don't get the overkill. You get the it has like a break that's like, you can't overkill me, or let me rephrase. You know what I mean? I'm explaining it really badly, but you know what I'm saying? If something's a 50, like a rooster, let's say. If something's a 51, a 1/2 cricket beats it. So it does well against high attack. That being said, I still think it kind of sucks. How many times have you lost to a 1/1 bee spawning? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Look, unique situation, a bee on a badger. The badger dies. Pyrrhic victory, spawns a bee. That's a strategy, okay? But a cricket at the back spawning a cricket when it dies does not mean the cricket won you the game with its unique strategy. It just means you had better stats than me. Also, the horse tack is attached. Very true. How do you know that? I need to get like the mathematical paper out here. Like, nobody has ever said, here's the proof. Everybody is going like, I just feel like a cricket's better at the back. I feel like we need like ASAP science to explain this or something. It feels better. That I agree with. I believe that it feels better. Anyway. Cricket is 1/2 with a free bee. Yeah, but you got to compare that to like, 1/2 with the free bee is basically like, you might think that that's 6 value, but it's not. The reason is a 1/2 is because it gives you the bee afterwards. That's true. I guess it's more like a 1/3 than a 2/3. Well, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. It's like the cricket is not good enough to warrant this discussion, quite frankly. Like, it's just it's not worth the intellectual discourse. Just play me 100 times my ideal early game squad versus whatever cricket bullshit you're pulling out, and we'll see how the numbers bear out. Crocodile, I gotta remember, okay? Actually, that's a good way to describe. Yeah, okay. What happens when a 1/2 cricket goes up against a 2/3 fish? They're both 2/3s, kind of. The cricket hits for 1 and dies. The fish hits for 2. They spawn a 1/1. The fish lives. The fish is a 2/1. after killing the cricket, lives to do 2 damage to whatever's behind it, which is probably, 2 HP itself. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Crocodile does 7 damage to the last enemy in the enemy that is on their right. Now, I will say, I have had snipe builds ruin my life, okay? I feel like if you roll a crocodile and the dolphin, you can really screw up a team's composition. Like if you, it depends. Most people put their defining unit at the front, just that's the way it tends to work. But if somebody's rolling a badger at the back, or a fly at the back, or a turkey, or a tiger, or something like that, it does some really good work. But I think to have them be at their best, you kind of have to have them together, and you give up a lot to make that happen. The one thing I will say is if you have capacity, you can, in my experience, get a crocodile on level up, run it for a couple of rounds, and then sell it. But overall, maybe this is controversial. I think I would be compelled to place it at the high D tier. And this one pains me because a lot of my brain is screaming, put it in the C tier, put it in the C tier. Y'all, Kratom Khan, thank you. Thank you for the gifted subs as well. I just think its effect is pretty good, but it falls off late. Its stats are really bad. So I think it needs a better effect to justify its terrible stats. By the way, you can't run it like this, okay? You can't be like worse than bird. You know, we got to compare them when they show up in the game. I mean, like if you got a crocodile in your first shop, you would be like, holy shit. It's a 6'3" that just, wipes their horse. Though it pains me to cause this much controversy, I'm sticking to my guns on this one because this is what feels right. I like to play it. I think it's fun. I thought it was interesting. But overall, I mean, like one of the things I use to appraise how afraid I am of, or how I place this is, am I afraid when I see one? And I'm like, not at all. Oh no, you shot my monkey after it already did all of its work, and now like my 50-50 goes buck wild on you. So honestly, get out of here. Now the deer, okay? The deer is one of the best in a vacuum 3 gold units. No question about it. To be able to, much like a scorpion, to be able to just spend 3 gold and have something that has the chance to mess with your opponent is very nice. That being said, I do think it loses more often lately in my experience. It does not do well against high stat units, especially if they have damage reduction via garlic armor in particular. So I really feel like the deer has fallen off a little bit lately, but there are many times, hey, you got a strong unit in the first position, you got a kangaroo that's a 2-3 behind it, it's getting shit on by the bus, and then your whole squad could fall apart. So I think it's an acceptable unit to run. I would probably say high B, low A tier, maybe the best of the B tier units. I'm going to just be honest, I think I'm being rude to the deer to some extent because I feel that I've overrated the whale highly and think if you have a deer, you have to complement it with a whale. And a whale can be great, but I think whale deer is actually not the best application. I think something like whale turtle does some great work. But overall, I think the whale is kind of overrated as well. But anyway. Okay, Dodo, this was like S tier, I think, when we did the tier list earlier. It has been nerfed now. It's been changed. Instead of distributing its attack to multiple units when it levels up, it just multiplies the damage that it gives to the unit that's directly in front of it. I actually think this is a weird one for me because I gotta like search my mind palace, which is obviously very dangerous. I mentally think that it's still good, but every time I've played it since the nerf, I've gotten my ass kicked. Like I think it's something to do with the fact that like there's it giving 2x its attack to a unit in front of it when it's level 2 is very nice, obviously, but it starts as a 1-3. Like it takes so much gold to get the Dodo off the ground now. I'm not saying I haven't lost to one, but since the nerf, but you know, when I see one now, I'm way less. Again, like my whole philosophy lately is that HP is so important. So like when I see that somebody has like a level 2 Dodo and oh good, now they've got a 38, you know, whatever up at the front, I'm like, okay, my 9-8 Swan trades with you, and then I just run buck wild on the rest of your team. Like I think it can be good. And I think if you built around it, maybe if you built like a ton of investment into it, you got a rooster, you ran it with a crab or something like that, then I think you got some good stuff going on. But I have so much value in like health over attack. You got to spend so much to get it going. I honestly think that the Dodo is probably looking at like a C tier position right now. I'm more scared to like see a camel at this stage of my life. I'm sure everybody's got a story of like, I had an early Dodo, I got to level 2 right away, I ran it with a crab behind like a unit with 12 HP, and then we just went buck wild. I'm sure it happens. I'm just saying now, maybe it's just overrepresented in games because people are still figuring it out. But anytime I see this now, I'm like, I'm not that scared. I feel like this does not frighten me too much. It was way worse when it could get 3 units or even 2 units to get the top tier. It pops off with the crab, but like, does it though? Because like you need a crab. So the crab first to be enabled has to have a unit with high HP in front of it, which is fine. It happens. But then the Dodo, even if you get the Dodo to level 2, you know, that's like 6 extra attack on it. And then you put some meats, that's 11 extra attack, but it's like, that's 12 cost. I'm not sure if I buy it, quite frankly. Anyway. You buff the Dodo too? It's possible, but wouldn't you rather IMO buff the unit at the front that has the HP so your crab lives longer? Like instead of your crab doing double damage, you could just give it meat and then buff the unit at the front, and then it could do double damage by living through 2 attacks instead of living through just 1. You buff both? I didn't realize you had an infinite money hack. What do you got? It's just Dodo, crab, 50-50 bison, and then 2 level 3 swans? I'm a dev. Okay. Well, if you're a dev, if you got the dev mode, then by all means, but... Anyway, regardless, dog is both a blessing and a curse. Dog is both a boon and a trap. It's everything all in one. It all depends on when it shows up. It depends on what shows up after it. It depends on what your squad looks like. I would be inclined to throw this into the B tier, and I'm gonna. I'd take it so much. Like if we were ordering this by incidence of me taking it, it would definitely be in the S tier. I think I overrate the possibility of the dog popping off, but it's really hard to not buy it when it shows up on turn 3 as your first tier 3 unit, if you combine to get to a level 2. I think also, if you get to level 2 with the dog relatively early, it pops off like crazy. You could easily get it to, if not 50-50, close to it. Then you put a crab behind it. You win 6 rounds in a row. In the mid game, you're off to the races, right? If you have a level 1 dog, you get trapped in the quicksand because you're like, okay, I've got an 18-20 dog. like one of those dogs where the front legs are huge and the back legs are really tiny. It's not scaling, but I can't sell it because it's my best unit. But I need to sell something in order to continue buffing the dog, and it's just like, it's a disaster, right? So I think it can get you stuck in the mud. I think it can pop off. It's a tough one, but I do think it is in the B tier. I think it can do some stuff. Okay, let me hydrate a little bit here. What are we, like a third of the way through? I gotta remember we're only going to 2 p.m. today. I don't have as much time to play with as I thought. My God, this is such a strange schedule to be a part of right now. Infinite time, infinite time. Okay, Dolphin. Dolphin. This is 6'4" or 5'3", I can't remember. Tier 4 unit, does 5 damage to the unit with the lowest HP. I think it's okay. I'm for now, I do prefer it to the crocodile. And I always love to go up against like a snipe build because it's just fun to watch. Because every other build that you run into, especially free to play, is literally, once you get to like turn 9, it's literally just some combination of like whale, turtle, turkey, fly, tiger, dog, shark. That's it. Spiders to get summon triggers, rams to get spawn triggers, etc., etc. So anytime I see anything except for that, I always am like, here's some respect for you. I respect you for getting to that point. But I would say overall, I would say that the Dolphin is maybe somewhere in like the middle C tier. I think it's nice to, much like a deer, but worse. If you have 3 gold and you need to fill space on your board, you can roll a 6'4" Dolphin for 1 turn. Maybe it'll snipe a little bit. Maybe it'll knock out an enemy tiger or something like that, and you'll be stoked. But you're never going to roll it longer than that. Now, it's very funny. It's very funny. I originally thought that we kind of had to put Dragon in the S tier. I have been buying and selling and him, me many, many times with the Dragon. But the new meta and methodology for me personally, I would say that the Dragon is a low A tier unit. Maybe this is controversial. It's not even about the capacity, like the fact that you need a spot for the Dragon and then a spot for your tier 1s. I actually think I just value way more deeper scaling on 1 unit or 2 units than wide 1-1 scaling. It can still work. It can define a game for you and win a game for you. I just think, like, in general, if you can get deeper scaling on a single unit, that works better than applying like +1/+1 to like a bunch of units you don't care about, more or less. But I think it's good, and I think I underrated it for a long time. Now, the Dromedary, I think, is kind of like not very good at all. It's kind of like a passive duck, and admittedly, you can, it's an okay fill if you already have a good squad. You're like, all right, I can see it existing. To buff us later, but I think this is a low C tier unit. I don't think it's useless. Like, I mean, come on. It's not a squirrel. I mean, you don't have to be as bad as a squirrel to be in the D tier, because like a crocodile is a lot better than a squirrel. But is it closer to squirrel or is it closer to cricket? I think it's closer to cricket. But I actually just feel like, I mean, there's a recurring theme. I think if they want stuff like duck and dromedary and chicken to be a little bit more useful, I think it has to buff more. The only thing is, like, the way that the math works out in the game, the only way they could really have it buff more is to like double its efficacy at level 1, which would make them the best units in the game. Like, if you could buy a 1/2 duck for 3, and then when you sold it, all of the units in the shop got +2/+2, you would like, I mean, that's unbelievable. Anyway, so here's where we start to fight. I think the duck is actually untakeable. And it's insane because I placed it in the A tier last time. Last time I was stupid. I did not respect how important it is to win early games. It's so, like, the cost that you pay to take a duck, which is a much greater chance of losing early, is so disproportionately low to the benefit, which is that your enhanced squad might make you win more later. It's not that important to win early if you go 5-0 in the mid game. You don't need a duck to go 5-0 in the mid game. I agree that at least the duck gives you a boost after you almost guarantee that you lose with it. But you don't need a duck to get to the level where you steamroll the mid game. You just need, honestly, I don't even want to say this because I think it's going to fucking ruin my win rate. You just need equipment. That's it. Like, you could roll a 2-squad team in the mid game that would win more rounds than it loses if one of them had garlic and one of them had meat and one of them was 15-15, the other one was a crab. It'll win you every round in the early game because you're going up against people's like wet dream nightmares, you know, where it's like, oh, I've got a camel, and then the camel is in front of a kangaroo, and then the camel has a bee on it, which gets one more trigger on the kangaroo, and then the kangaroo is in front of, and then you just have like a 15-15 with garlic armor that's just like tunk, 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 and just kills their whole squad because they built around the combo piece like it's a red-blue deck in Magic the Gathering, and then you just freaking Tarmogoyf over top of them. Like, it's easy. So I think that investing, like risking your early game HP, which is insanely precious. Like, I think this could be different if this was Teamfight Tactics, and instead of having 4 HP, you had 100 HP or 50, and then instead of losing 1 heart, 1/4 of your HP, you lost whatever like the surplus animal damage was. I think you could totally have a duck and then sacrifice, 3-4 HP in the early game, and then the duck could scale to get you to a much better position later. I think in that situation, a duck could go off. When you're guaranteed to lose 1/4 of your stack, more or less, when you're running it, I think the cost is like way too high. Now, someone in chat said, what about if you bought a duck on turn 1, sold it, and then bought the other 2 units? I would have to think about it. I'd have to make a Smurf account to try it. I'm trying to think. Like, okay, let's say you got the dream shop. Okay, let's just say you got 2 fish. They're 2 3s. You buy a duck, sell a duck. Now you got 2 3 4s. Okay, and 6 7 8 9. Why is 6 afraid of 7? Okay, 3 4. Let's say you're going up against. Let's just call it a normie squad. Fish, mosquito, beaver. The mosquito shoots. Let's say you got a 3 3, a 3 4. You kill the fish. You kill the mosquito and die. You kill the beaver. I don't know, man. Maybe duck, fish could get you there. But then in my head, I'm also like, what if you just had 2 3 2 3 and then a 2 2 beaver? Because you got to evaluate the other case, right? So in that situation, let's say you have a 2 2 at the front. Their fish kills you. Your second fish kills their fish. You're left on 1 HP. Their mosquito trades with your fish. Now you have a 2 2 beaver against their beaver. You draw. Very interesting. You know what? You got an interesting little idea here. I don't think you're at least creating a situation where maybe a duck could serve you early. But I still think it's untakeable. The one exception here is if you Here's the thing. You're going to be like, well, what if you got fish, fish, duck? Sure, I don't know. There's like a 1 in 40 chance of it happening, but if you play enough, you'll probably see it. But I'm also like, what you would probably rather do is like fish, fish, freeze, duck, roll once because you'll have 4 gold left, and then try to take something else. But if you got the duck, maybe, I guess you can't do it in that order. But anyway, okay. Eagle. I think the eagle is dog tier. Like, not dog tier, but like dog tier. I actually feel like it's shitty. Everybody loves it every time it shows up. Eagle, tier 5 eagle, pill it, get a random tier 6. Oh shit, it's horrible. Like, genuinely, first off, that's 4 gold for a random tier 6. Sometimes it could work, maybe sometimes it could give you exactly what you want. Most of the time it's probably going to give you something you're like, just going like that. However, I just think it's bad. I don't think I've ever, like, here's my problem, okay? The eagle giving you a tier 6 on pill is okay if you get it early. If it's turn 9, you get a tier 5, you pill it, you get a T-Rex. You're like, okay, that's the dream scenario. That's pretty good, admittedly. 4 gold for a random tier 6 after tier 5s or tier 6s are unlocked is not good. You'd much rather spend 1 less gold, or maybe like a gold on a reroll to be able to buy one of your choice, I think. And then the other thing is, most tier 6s, I think, are not good in battle when they spawn for you. So, like, you might be like, well, it's just a better spider. I don't know, man. I kind of feel like a 2/2 spider that could spawn a snail, could spawn a giraffe, could spawn some garbage, but also could spawn a turtle, which is Melon Armor, or could spawn a ram, which is going to generate a bunch of faint triggers or spawn triggers. Like, that beats summoning what? An octopus, a T-Rex, a dragon. Like, I think that I'm going to put the eagle straight up. I see it like as a dromedary. I also see this as a temporary bathroom break. This is taking a little bit much longer than expected. All right, we're back, and empty bladder. You love to hear it. You love to see it. What did I just do? I placed eagle properly. In my opinion, I placed eagle properly. I was thinking about it the whole time I was in the bathroom. Somebody had said most tier 6s have incredible stats, and I'm like, you piece. You really think your 6/5 eagle gets fucking bodied by my 50/50 garlic otter, then it summons a 10/12 T-Rex? You think I give a shit? You think I even feel it under my wheels as I steamroll you? I wouldn't even slow down, man. I wouldn't even slow down. Anyway, you think I got a 200 mosquito? I'm gonna complain about a T-Rex? Come on. Anyway, elephant. Okay, elephant is a weird one because I actually feel like the elephant's ability is an outright negative. A guaranteed hurt trigger is okay. Not good necessarily. And admittedly, I see the elephant like enough that you'll see weird interactions from time to time. But the thing that makes me laugh sometimes is when I like roll a mosquito and I play against an elephant team, and then I shoot the thing that they want to hit with the elephant so that the elephant kills it on like turn 2. And I'm like, okay, so you killed your blowfish to do 2 damage to 2 random enemies. And then got no upside apart from that. Like, wow, what an incredible benefit. Anyway, long story short, with all that in mind, I still think you can play an elephant. I would not put it in the B tier with animals I respect, but I would say that overall, like if you get it early, you can roll a 3/5 elephant at the back, and it can win you a game for sure. I would say that probably places it somewhere, maybe in like this tier, like maybe around there. That seems appropriate to me. I guess it counters Dirty Rat. But you know what else counters Dirty Rat? Dirty Rat's stats and ability. It's one of the best ways to counter Dirty Rat is to look at what it does and then recognize that buying it would be a catastrophe. Although sometimes it does. I have seen, lately I've been losing a little bit more to Dirty Rat. What people do is they buy Dirty Rat and then give it a cupcake. And honestly, like, you're not getting through a 7-8 on turn 3. Like, the rat will do some... It'll get you a win there if you need it. Or an 8-9. Yeah. It'll do some work. So fish is interesting. It is... In my opinion, you can't call it the second best turn 1 unit. Because I think that an ant needs a fish, and a fish needs an ant. They're both, they synergize together. Peanut butter and chocolate. We finish each other's sandwiches, etc., etc. I will say, the fish is going to be high, okay? Fish is going to be high up here. I overrated the fish's ability. A +1/+1 to everybody one time is not that special. It's good. You want to play around it, like you want to try to make sure you're buffing things that benefit from the buffs that you're not just going to sell immediately. But it's not a huge deal. And level 2 is so expensive that you're not really looking at the level 2 upgrade that a single snail would do the exact same for you. You're more looking at like, okay, now I have a tier 3 so I can get a bison to pop. But I would still say the fish ends up in A tier. I think you really have to consider it maybe even the top of the A tier. The thing is, an ant without a fish is better than a fish without an ant. You could have a beetle. You could even have a beaver. You could have a mosquito. Anything as a 2/2 is going to do okay with an ant. But the fish... I mean, it's my favorite tier 1 unit. What about 2 fishes? Hold on. I'm entering my mind palace. 2 fishes. 2 2/3s versus a... you draw, right? How is Duck D tier? Duck is stupid broken turn 3 or 4. It's also... Duck is one of those things, when you get a 5-win round, you're like, oh, but I was just about to pop off. Why didn't I pop off? Because you gave up a round or 2 to the duck early on. I'm telling you. We went over this already. Just put your stats in the chat. That's all I ask. I'm not saying how many points you've earned. I'm saying points earned per game. I don't care if you no-lifed it for, 300 hours. You got a bunch of 2-win games. But I got the golden poop. You got to trust me. I got the golden poop. Flamingo. I think I'm trying to avoid putting this in the B tier just because the B tier is underrepresented. I think it's high C, and I genuinely believe this. Now, I buy it all the time. It's a good fill, and it's an okay pill, but I don't actually think it's that good. What happens to me, like, a lot of the time, I, like, buy a flamingo just to be like, oh, I'm going to fill space. And then, pardon me, I'm like, oh, now I got a flamingo. A whale shows up. I'm like, buy a whale. Now the whale eats the flamingo. 2 +1/+1s. I'm spawning a flamingo +1/+1. And, long story short, I end up building around something that's garbage. I think it's okay, though. Like, you can definitely roll it. Like, this is something where I'm like, if I see one of these, I'm like, I already won. If I see one of these, I'm like, okay, they might have something good going on here. The fly is certainly an A tier unit. It's between A and S. Again, this is what's going to blow people's minds, because they're going to be like, fly below fish or what? You got to evaluate it for when it shows up in the game, okay? I would say that a fly is as impactful in the late game, depending on your build, as a crab can be in the early to early mid game. So I would say we'd be looking at maybe something like this. This seems appropriate to me. Admittedly, look, it's a 2-2. But again, I mean, maybe this is a hot take, or maybe I'm just the first person that's on the cutting edge of this part of the meta. A 2-2 and a 10-10 are functionally equivalent by the time you're in the late game, which is to say they both better have good abilities because they're probably going to die in one hit. Obviously, a 10-10 is better, and it has a higher chance to maybe like knock something out with it. But the kinds of teams you're going up against by the time turn 6 units come up, the stats need to be substantially better in order to justify their existence. Fly Turkey can get you there without a doubt. And well, people are like, fly without turkey is kind of dog doo-doo. It's true, but like you would never do it, you know? Like you could apply that logic to a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, if you get a cat that doubles your food and then you just don't buy food, then the cat is like D tier. And I do agree with that, Richard. I no matter what, the turkey is going to end up higher than the fly. The fly needs the turkey. The turkey doesn't need the fly. I guess you could have fly shark, but I don't know. I kind of feel like fly shark tends to lose pretty consistently too. I wouldn't consider it a top tier like late game unit. Well, maybe I would describe it as a 1300 elo late game Marty. Giraffe sucks. I buy it all the time. It's an okay fill, but it's S tier in the sound tier list. When you summon it and it goes, giraffe. I love that. It's probably the best sound in the game. +1/+1 to the unit directly in front of you is okay. It's okay. It's an apple a turn, but an apple sucks. It's a 1/3, which is basically dead. It doesn't do anything in a battle. And the level up is so disappointing. At least the way I play the game. I think that if it gave +2/+2 to the unit directly in front of it, then it would be like better at level 2. But a +1/+1 to multiple units is like, it's not good enough. I really think Giraffe needs a buff. I don't know, +2/+2 at level 1 is like, it's pretty good. It's a less flexible monkey that shows up a little earlier, but at least like +2/+1 or +1/+2, and then maybe doubling it at the next level or something. That could be fun. But right now, I don't think it's untakeable. I think it's just like a bad fill. I would probably put it maybe around like, maybe just under the elephant tier. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like the second and third level giraffes are just garbage tier. Like it needs a better level up. But if you have the mental fortitude to use it for a round or two, I agree 100%, Albatross. You use it for a round or two when you got nothing else. It gives you a permanent benefit on a unit that you like, and then you dump it for something a little bit more useful. Goat is not good enough, in my opinion. Have we, I would put it right around there. Have we had runs where a goat plus a dragon led to victory? Yeah, but if you got rid of the goat, would that have affected things? Not really. I mostly just did it because it was fun. Basically, the thing that's nice about the goat, I think it's like underrated if you read it but don't think about it. The thing that's nice about it is like you can buy a unit for 3, you get 1 refund, and then you sell that unit for 1. So basically for 1 gold, 3 times per turn, you get a +1/+1, but you need a dragon alongside of it. Like it's pretty good in that sense, but you need way too many enablers. Goat plus Scampy is easy 10 wins. Come on, don't lie to the people. How are you getting there's so many caveats there. Like Scampy effect is okay. Stats are horrendous, right? Goat is the same boat. His stats are horrible. Its effect is interesting. How are you getting to like enough? How are you living long enough with a Scampy in order to also have the space to fit a goat? Like it just, I don't see it happening, man. I don't see it happening. Like I gotta tell you, Scampy is like one of the most fun units in the game, but it's like untakeable. Like it's duck tier. I love all these duck fans. Hold on, just one moment. I gotta read the comment here. I love all these duck fans. Thanks for the 10 wins. Finally, I don't know what. Look, last time I did this tier list, I put the duck in the A tier. Okay. And I was stupid back then. I thought like, you know what it is this fetishization of like being clever. It's like, oh, I'm so smart. I'm going to like deliberately lose to raise my chances slightly of winning later. That's what I'm guilty of, spreading the fable. But like having played so much more of the game now, this is not good. It feels good to do because you're like, I lost, but it was on purpose. So really I won. But actually, you know, it's the bell curve meme. Where like people on one side of the bell curve are like 1, 2 for 3, not worth it. People on the other side of the bell curve are like 1, 2 for 3, not worth it. But then people in the middle are like, I deliberately lost in order to have a chance to win later, but I only had 1 HP, and then I lost to a team that was just mine but better. So well, you know, you get the idea. It needs something else. Anyway, regardless, clip me. Put me in the clip. I feel like I underrate Gorilla. I've never had like a run that does well with it. I previously you could have a Gorilla, give it Melon. It lives through the Melon hit, hopefully. Then it gets Coconut Armor once, which is better than Melon. That's good stuff. Now that the Melon trigger doesn't count as hurt, you don't get the free Coconut Armor, so you got to build it to the point where it can actually hold Melon Armor. I think it's... Look, I think it's one of the most overrated animals in the game. Now, it doesn't mean it can't beat your ass. There's nothing worse than, like, you almost kill a gorilla, but then it gets Coconut Armor and your 50-50 just gets totally nullified. But I think that the instances in which that happens are so much lower, in my experience, than situations where, like, a 10-10 gorilla with Melon Armor gets hit for 31, dies, and then the rest of their team was just built to funnel stats to the front, and they just get shit on. So I would say it's certainly not down here. And it's certainly like, it's not like here, but I would be inclined to think that it fits in like somewhere along these lines. Like maybe just in front of a Blowfish. I don't know. This is one of those things where I'm like, I'm not sure if it needs a buff, but I think it's less impressive than most of the stuff that you would see at the same time in the game and be excited about. Richard, close your ears. Hedgehog is bad, but it's really, really funny. I was saying this earlier, but last night, I won this round, by the way, but I went up against a build that was like level 2 Hedgehog, Whale, 2 Blowfish, and then like a Badger at the back. I can't remember exactly how it played out, but I'm pretty sure I had like a dolphin or something, so I just killed their Badger, and then the Whale ate the Hedgehog, and then like wiped out one of the Blowfish, and it just like fell apart. Like it's just a disaster, but it's really fun. I mean, honestly, I feel like it's in like it's in the D tier, but I don't know. Like I almost feel like it's kind of around here, but I'm raising it slightly just because it's so much fun to see. It's got a meme build associated with it. It is true. You can end a fight without anybody attacking with this, as long as you have a way to kill the Hedgehog, which will probably be a whale. But anyway, Hippo Hippo, I think, is really good. I think Hippo is a build around. It destroys white weenie builds, which in free to play are like 80% of the meta for whatever reason. It's a little like, I don't think a Hippo is an S tier unit. I think that it's in like the mid A tier. The problem is that it's kind of like feast or famine. Most of the time, the Hippo's not going to wipe a squad. Most of the time, it'll probably kill 2 units. And if it gets through 2 units, anything could happen. The problem is, if it gets one-tapped, your whole build is probably going down. But I would still say it's in the A tier. I also feel like it's really, like, any unit you can build around that goes in the front spot is automatically buffed a little bit because Monkey is so good. You know, when you have a unit that you want to be in, like Shark's a good example, I think. You always want your Shark to get stats, but you can't put a Shark in the first position, so it's harder to get the stats on it. You need to kind of build feints into your squad. Hippo, on the other hand, goes in the right position, ergo it works well with Monkey and easily gets some stat upgrades. So I think it has a benefit there. I hate to tell you this, okay? I've run the gamut on horse. I have run weeks where I thought that you run, like, the ideal setup is that you run 3 horses early and then buy crickets. It's bad. It's not good. And the reason is attack means nothing and defense means everything. It's actually doo-doo. And I'm not, like, this is not a rare situation, but, like, it dies to mosquitoes so often. I do. I think it's, like, the biggest quicksand in the game. Like, I think that, weirdly enough, the horse actually sucks for the first 2 turns. I think it does better in the, like, 3, 4, 5 region, and then it does nothing. I think it does really well when you get a level 2 horse and you know, have a ram that is 2/2 or a sheep that's 2/2 that then summons 2 4/2s after it. Like, you can do really well there. But in turn 1, I actually think, like, it's unbuyable. Completely. I don't think I've lost to a horse build on turn 1 or turn 2 in, like, 4 days. I for real, I do think it's better than duck. But I think it's much worse than almost anything else that you can buy. Horse cricket wins you, though? It doesn't. I genuinely think it doesn't. Like, I would put, I don't even need, I'm not going to run the math, but if you're running 2 horse cricket or 2 cricket horse, and I'm running ant fish mosquito, which is a very common build. I mean, you could replace the mosquito even with, like, a beaver. You could replace the fish with a beaver. Like, it loses, I think. I don't fear the horses, man. Horse otter cricket is an okay start. Okay, let me think. So you buy a horse, you buy a cricket, now you got a 2/2 cricket. Then you buy an otter, you hope that it hits the cricket. Then you got a 3/3 cricket that summons a 2/1. Then you got a 1/2 and a 1/1. I mean, that could be a good squad. I think it's too precious, though. I think it's a little bit too precious. You buy horse otter, guarantee it hits horse. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. The horse having 1 HP is, like, really the worst part, but anyway. I genuinely, like, early on, you got to remember my philosophy. My philosophy is early on, fuck synergy. It doesn't matter at all. You do not need to be like, oh, good, 2 crickets and a horse. I'm going to build, like, a white weenie deck. Don't do that. Just buy good stat units. You will have a much better chance to win the early rounds. When you win the early rounds, you know, you're going to get some pairs. You're going to get some triples. Combine them. Get the effect. See if you get something that allows you to buff those creatures even further. It's like I do this all the time, or I have done this all the time myself. I'm trying to get out of the habit. But I'll like get to, you know, like a 7/7 level 2 beaver and be like, okay, time to sell it. Nah, man, put some garlic on that, throw some G's on it, and then get ready for, like, you know, that's two or three more free wins there. Okay. Kangaroo is actually like a really good 2/3 3-cost unit. It is a little bit like a crab. It's very similar to the crab build. I don't think you have to build around it by putting a camel in front of it or something like that. I think you just, if you've already built a good stat unit, you're going to put a kangaroo just behind it, and at 2/3, it's going to get you a lot of value. They're all 3-cost? Yeah, so the ergo is good. You're comparing, and it's an apples-to-apples comparison. Like, I'm saying that because, like, some other units, you're like, at level 1, it's not that good, but if I invest, you know, in 3 of them, then for 9 gold, I've got an effect that I like. This is like I'm evaluating it on the axis of Scorpion or Deer, where for 3 gold, you're getting like an immediate benefit. I think Kangaroo, I think high B tier is very sensible here. It's a mid-game superstar. It doesn't need anything to pop, but it benefits from stuff. Really, I think that you would roll this the same way you roll a crab. Let's say you got a 12/12, you're on turn 5. You put a 2/3 kangaroo behind it. In all likelihood, it's going to get 2, 3, 4 triggers. All of a sudden, you've got a 15/15 and a 15/15 for 3 gold. That's pretty good. You probably, I don't think you run it late game, but still. Ladybug, I feel like I'm not qualified to discuss this. I do think a 1/3 is good, but I think buying food for a beetle is a trap. But I will also say that flies in the face of the way that I normally have been playing the game lately, which is you want to win early rounds. So the problem is you can't buy, I mean, typically, pardon me, turn 1, you have 1 reroll, 3 animal purchases. Turn 2, you buy 2, you have 1 reroll, 2 animals in a food, or 1 reroll, 3 animals, and you combine into a pair. Anything into a pair. You know what? I'm gonna put this in the I'm gonna put this in the high C for now. But I'm also putting an asterisk on it that's like, okay, maybe if you got a beetle early, or like a red beetle, a ladybug. Maybe if you got a ladybug early, and on turn 2, instead of pairing up an animal, you gave it an apple or honey, then we could see. I'm willing to give this a chance later. I'm going to tell you straight up, a lot of the fan favorite animals are dog shit. It's true. Leopard is trash, man. I forget what it starts at. It's a 6/3 or it's an 8/4, right? It's still bad. Like, unupgraded 4 damage to a unit, or 3. It's a 6/4. Unupgraded 3 damage to a random unit is absolutely terrible. Yeah, you can build stats on it, but you can build stats on fucking anything. It's the same situation. Like, it shows up so late. You put your leopard, which shows up, oh, I got it early on turn 9. You put that up against like a 50-50 beaver that we've been pogging up for the whole game. It just loses. Like, I think it's I think it's worse than a crocodile. I think a crocodile is more likely to hit good units because they tend to be at the back. Well, it depends on the build, but I think it's way worse than a dolphin because it shows up so much later. I just think it's not very good, quite frankly. I think it's actually even worse than just on the level that we've played it here because of the fact that it soaks up buffs. Because naively you think like, oh, this is gonna like win me. Like I'm losing my mind that so many people are like leopards underrated. In all of the times that I've played the game, I don't know if I've ever. I probably see a leopard in like the late rounds once every 20 fights. I don't know if I've lost to a leopard like in living memory. Use it with use it with tiger. Okay, so now you got like 2 dog shit units on stats to do what? Like 10 damage to 2 random units? Or if you spend all of your money for 4 turns in a row, 10 damage to 4 random units or something? Like, it's just not that good. I sure hope I get a leopard build against you. Well, okay, you're going to have to stop buying ducks in the first 2 rounds so you have a chance to make it to the mid game. Then you got to use this tier list as a Bible to get through the mid game. And then maybe you can feed me my 10th win with your leopard in the late game. If you're lucky. Llama is untakeable. It cannot be done. The +2/+2 is like... I mean, I think it might be like here. I think it might be the worst animal in the game, quite frankly. I don't know. Nobody knows what the lobster even does, and it's coming up next. I think... Okay, hold on. I'm willing to move it ahead of the chicken because I don't know if I've ever even bought a chicken. It's just not worth the cost. I do love 4-squad Marties, but the 4-squad Marty is a temporary thing that you do in order to... Like, there's just some situations where you have an empty space, you have 3 gold, but you can spend your 3 gold more effectively on upgrading an existing unit, maybe with equipment or maybe with, like, getting to the next level, than, you know, buying a 3/4 Swan. Or I guess Swan's a bad example because it gives you an effect, but... you don't run it long term. I will say, in my head, I think there's a theoretical existence of a 4-squad Marty. Like, what if you had 3 llamas? That's probably not the right way to think about it, but I guess if you got a llama insanely early, and maybe you ran 2 llamas or something like that, so you get the scaling effect on 2 of them. But I just, again, half of this is like how I've used it and how it's worked for me, and the other half is, do I lose to this build regularly? And the answer is no. I mean, you see llamas almost never right now, which doesn't mean that they're bad, but it's hard to evaluate. And I feel like I go pretty hard on them. Richard, now you got me thinking. You got me theory crafting. Llama plus dog, so you have like a guaranteed capacity space. You've eliminated the temptation. It's an interesting way to think about it. You know what? I'm not saying I'm gonna do it. I'm just saying I know you're like the mad scientist. I'm a consistency guy. I try to run like the same builds over and over. Like, I think you're more of like the... I'm like the Hafu of Super Auto Pets. I try to get my arena rank as high as possible. You're like the Trump SC. You're publishing like YouTube videos that are like, you know, check it out. Whale eats hedgehog, triggers 5 blowfish to go. That go ba 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 ba. That then spits out the ba 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 ba. Anyway, so you got me. I'm not. This isn't a knock. This is like, it's respect. I'm now thinking in my head like, that's sure llama plus dog. Maybe you could make it work. Maybe you could make it work. Now I want to try it. Now lobster is, I still don't even understand it. When you have a lobster, I don't know what it does. It's a 4/4. When a friend is summoned, you give it +2/+2 out of battle. Is that correct? So when you buy a unit, it gives them +2/+2? But like just once, right? Now, when you say it doesn't work in battle, if you buy a 4/4, it becomes a 6/6. When battle starts, it doesn't become a 4/4. That would be crazy. But what you mean is like if it summons something like a ram isn't going to get the +2/+2. The ram is still going to be a 2/2. It seems like pure dog shit. Costs the same as a can. Is worse than a can. Yeah, it's like, what are you doing, man? Get out of here. I will also tell you, again, I'm not making a lot of friends here, okay? The Mammoth is overrated. Maybe not bad, but overrated. By the time it shows up in the late game, even if you whale it, who gives a shit, okay? +2/+2 to 4 units, or +2/+2 to 4 units, and then +2/+2 to 3 units is horrible. It loses so easily to units that are strong enough to get you to 10 wins to begin with. I'm not scared. I genuinely, I think it's untakeable. Now, it's not untakeable. Like, you could take it and people besides me won't make fun of you. But if your goal in the game is just not to be ridiculed for losing, then sure, buy as many mammoths as you want, okay? I, on the other hand, prefer to try to win. And even if I lose after that, I can deal with that knowing I at least gave it my best. It's not takeable. You can't, admittedly, if you're in the unique situation, you're on 3 gold, you have an empty space, you have a full shop, you can't roll and like sell and then buy something else to fill. I think you can fill this as like your position 1. But that's like, I think it's probably like, I think it's probably there, in my opinion. You can pill it. What is this fascination with spending 4 gold for something that you can do for 3 gold much more easily? Like, why would you pay 3 gold for a snail when instead you could get a mammoth, roll your food shop 20 times to try to get a pill, and then give all of your 10/10s +2/+2, so you're like, 2% less likely to get fucking bodied by like a 40/40 hippo next round. You can pill ants. There's a difference. You can pill ants because the ant has already given you value round 1, round 2, round 3. Then you're like, okay, it's time to go. The ant's gone with some upside. Buying a mammoth to then pill it right after for stats, not good. That's you do not deserve to have power of attorney over your own money. You should have an adult in charge of your finances. That's the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals. Amoeba. I haven't run an amoeba since the nerf. I haven't played that much pay to win lately, actually. I find it fun. I think it's got to go in the C tier, though. Like, the way Pill Microbe is top tier. That's a great idea. I love anything that's bad on purpose. Like, buying a hedgehog and then pilling it to kill your whole squad. That one's a lot of fun. I think Amoeba, the problem with Amoeba is that it's like a build around. Like, you pretty much have to run like a turtle behind it. But I think if you do that, it counters like a lot of squads. Like, so many squads, especially like once you get past the mid game, are like basically themed around their equipment. They're just like, I hit hard and I have melon armor. I hit hard and I have garlic armor, Being able to just like remove all equipment and then get equipment yourself is really nice. So I think I've gotten to the point where I actually might consider this B tier. The thing that makes it bad is more that you have to so hard commit to it that like it basically needs a turtle. If you don't have a turtle, I'm not saying you can't run it, but you kind of need it to make it shine. Monkey is like a meta-defining animal right now, in my opinion, at least. I I feel like you almost have to take it pretty much every time it shows up. More times than you skip it, at least. A +2/+2, relatively early unit, reliable scaling, makes your front unit better, which tends to be where you place your strongest units to begin with. I think you got to put this... I would keep it right around here. I think maybe low 8s here. It's really good. It scales nicely. Again, I can't believe we're going to spend 3 hours on this tier list, man. This shit is crazy. Why are you... It's your fault because you're watching this. And you're watching this. I look at the numbers. I say this is good content. Then when I finish the stream, I go to the subreddit. Is anybody else sick of Super Auto Pets? And like, you know, even if 8,000 people are watching the stream, there's like 2 people who are like, I miss when he played, you know, EU4. And I'm like, I'm so fucked up. I'm such a piece of shit. Okay, to fight Crusader Kings 3 all day tomorrow. And then I just play Super Auto Pets instead. But anyway, so anyway, it's your fault. But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, Monkey. It's very good. I thought I had something else to say about it. Oh, yeah, no, my philosophy is that the first 2 to 3 units of your squad are for killing, and the other 2 to 3 units are basically just to make your first 2 to 3 units stronger. So the fact that the monkey has garbage stats literally doesn't matter at all, as long as it feeds into something that gets stronger and has a disproportionate benefit from that strength, like a piece of equipment that allows it to attack more often. The end. And then it also makes it more painless, you know, when you're on 9 wins but 1 HP left, and you're like, what do I do? Well, you sell your monkey, you slot in a scorpion in position 1, and then you win the game. There you go. Enjoy your 10 spot. Mosquito, I underrated pretty highly. I think just in general. I thought it was a bottom tier turn 1 unit. I think it's actually above the median. I don't think it's the top. And I think part of the reason it's so good is that everybody takes ants and a lot of people take horses, which means in a lot of early situations, you will end up killing an ant or killing a horse, and then the other person will just lose. And 2/2, the stats are okay, honestly. Plus, there's nothing like rolling like 3 mosquitoes into your second fight. When you roll 3 mosquitoes into your second fight and you see 2 horses and an ant, you're just like, come on. I think it's even better than a 3/2. Well, I mean, it's RNG dependent, right? But I think it's better than a 3/2 because its first hit basically has Melon Armor. I mean, you don't get to choose the target, but, you know, here's the thing, even if you hit a unit that doesn't die, you could play into the trade a little bit better. Like if you have a 2/3 fish at the front, they have a 2/3 fish at the front, your mosquito hits their fish, now your fish kills their fish and maybe trades with the second unit, which wins you the match for sure. But anyway, you could run this all day. You could also, do 1 damage to a unit that has 10 HP, and then it makes no difference whatsoever, and then they just run buck wild over you. I would still say, though, the Mosquito, I genuinely think it's like a B tier. It's part of my... This is like the borderline after which point I consider that the units below it on turn 1 and 2 are settling. Like this, I'm happy, thrilled. This, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Are you kidding me, man? Like, maybe you're okay, but... Octopus, I really think we actually screwed ourselves with the Octopus by getting literally the dream scenario the first time we got it. Remember when we got the Octopus on our first pay-to-win game? And we got a level 3 Octopus that wiped the enemy squad without even attacking 1 time? That was incredible. I thought, why would anybody ever use this? Why would anybody ever use anything but the Octopus? It does level to a 16/16 as well, which is kind of nice, but you know, it takes getting a level 2 of a tier 6, which is kind of difficult. I think it is probably, I hate to say it, man. I think it comes in, and remember, we're evaluating when it shows up in the game. I think it's like, I would feel slightly better taking a giraffe early than taking an octopus late, quite frankly. And the only reason is here is because I literally had the best scenario you could ever ask for. I don't think it'll ever happen again. This is back when the average person playing this game, you know, on like turn 8, they would have like 2 level 1 mosquitoes and a leopard. And you would be like, what? Like now it's round 3, you're rolling up against people who have like a 12-12, and you're like, guess I'll die. But it's fun when it works, but it's really hard to run. Now an otter, I look at the otter as fundamentally very similar to the beaver, but maybe even, I might even push it slightly higher. But what the beaver's weakness is that it gets much worse after combining into a level 2. If you have to use this for your level on turn 3, you're happy you got the level, but you're like, it could have been better. And I didn't get this until recently, the otter frickin' is cracked, okay? So for 3 gold, you get a 1-2, which is garbage, but then it gives you a random apple, which is worth something. You know, the +1 attack and especially +1 health is worth a ton early on. It can win you rounds for sure just on its own merit. But then you get 2 otters. You combine them. You buy into the combination so that the +1/+1 doesn't hit the otter, IMO. The 3rd otter is where it starts to pop off. Every subsequent otter that you, like that one and every subsequent one, give you a free pair, which is disgusting. Like it actually, I realized because I was running into a lot of like level 2, level 3 otters late game that were like steamrolling me. And I was like, why are people like keeping the otter this long? It's because it gets so good. It's so good at making other things good. And then its stats just get better by virtue of you keeping it there. So it's solid, man. I really think that this is, I might even, over time, I feel like I might be compelled to raise this a little bit. I think it's one of the only units you continue to scale from the very early game because of its merit instead of just its stats. The only thing that sucks is, well, I mean, it's a 1-2, which is pretty terrible in the very, very early game. And then secondarily, once you get it to level 3, you can't fit any more on it, which is kind of crappy. But anyway, it's good. Yeah. I mean, you know what? I'm happy with it though. Maybe okay, fine. Owl. I think the owl is fine, which probably puts it in the high C, low B tier. The cell effect is okay. The 5/3 stats are good. So you know what? Like, I think you have to evaluate what happens instead of like what you wish happens, right? So what happens to me many times, I have 3 gold. I say, okay, I'll buy a flamingo knowing I can pill it later. I lose my next round or win my next round. Who even knows? Then I don't get a pill. I roll. I don't get a pill. I roll. I don't get a pill. And then I sell this thing. And I've just wasted so much gold for like no benefit whatsoever. The owl, you just sell it as soon as you're done with it and you get the benefit. You don't have to wait for an enabler. So I do think that it beats a flamingo in my opinion, although it's nice to be able to target the buff. I would honestly put this in like the low B tier. Low B, it's weird because it's like you rarely keep it for like more than 1 round. But at the same time, If you're only keeping it for 1 round, that's great stuff. How is it not better than beaver? You have to evaluate the animals within their own, the temporal bubble in which they show up in the game. Otherwise, it would basically just be like tier 6s, tier 5s, tier 4s, tier 3s, tier 2s, and 1s. You gotta... did 12 T-Rex under... well, T-Rex is going to be pretty high, but, you know, 8 octopus under 1-2 otter? I never. Anyway, ox, I go, like, back and forth on this so much. I think I lose to the ox a lot. And that makes me think that it's pretty good. I think you got to put... If I have trouble evaluating something, I would say that, to be honest, we probably got to put this in the mid-B tier. Like, maybe around there. It gets Melon Armor super easily. Just from pilling anything. Usually you're going to have a flamingo or an ant to pill. And early Melon Armor is really good. Like, when you think about it, like a 3-4 ox, which usually if it's 3-4 with Melon Armor, it'll be 5-4 in battle. You know, it beats like a 10-10 unit, which is kind of amazing. I do think it falls off, but I still think it's pretty good. But I don't use it that much. Anytime I use it, I always find that like it's disappointing. But maybe that's the sign of a balanced unit. When I use it, I'm like, it sucks. When other people use it, it's great. Maybe that means it's exactly where it's supposed to be. Parrot. Parrot is weird. Copies the unit in front of it and can now imprint on other things. I have no idea how to feel about this. It's obviously bad in and of itself. Why is it bad, Tiger? Let's talk this out. Tiger copies the unit in front of it. Why is the parrot worse than the tiger? Because tiger doubles the effect. Ah, yes. It makes perfect sense. And it only copies the tier 1. That makes sense. Or level 1, I should say. So a tiger doubles the efficacy of the unit in front of it, or at least the effect. A parrot just becomes a worse version of a better unit in front of it. Yeah, okay. You've convinced me. I never buy it. I bet there's some worlds where you're like, this is okay. But you would think even like, oh, well, I'll just put it like behind a snake or something like that. But you don't get 2 triggers off of the snake. Usually you'll have like a tanky unit in front of a snake that allows the snake to trigger a lot. Then your snake will die the first or second time it gets hit. So a parrot behind a snake doesn't do anything. You know what? Maybe you've convinced me. Maybe you convinced me to keep it maybe around here. I'm sure there's situations where it can work, but I guess what you'd be looking for is maybe to use it as like a duplicate monkey, but then why would you, in like every situation, you would rather just have a duplicate monkey? Because then you could combine them later to get a tier 2. Anyway. Peacock, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. As long as we're talking about it, I feel like the Peacock is one of the most overrated units of the game. And it's for the same reason that we've talked about many times today, which is that it doesn't really matter if something scales if it only scales in attack. I always laugh when people have like a peacock and then like an elephant in front of it. And I'm like, dude, I hope it takes me 20 turns to kill your elephant, because what do I care if you got a 51 peacock? Like, you need to have some attack to kill units, but you need to have more. Like, I guess this is where I'm trying to go with this, okay? Every animal that you survive your head-to-head against, every attack you survive doubles your damage. So adding like +2 attack on hurt is not bad necessarily, but you don't need to add 2 attack if you could just live through 1 more attack every attack that you live through doubles your damage in that sense. Or allows you to do your damage one more time. So that's why Crab is so good. Is that like 4 attack? Let's call it 4 attack by default. Behind like a 20 life, you got to look at it in like raw damage potential. You know, what is, I mean, I picked a perfect number, but what does a 420 accomplish? It probably gets to dish out like 16 attack minimum. You throw some meat on that. Now it's dealing 36 attack or maybe 45 attack. I can't remember how many times I said they were going to live, but every bit of HP is worth proportionally more than the attack, because if you survive, you don't do a little extra attack, you do your attack again. Whereas, you know, the more you scale your attack, like so many times, you know, you end up with this peacock that went to the fucking moon. They got like a 15-1 peacock, and then it hits, you know, a 3-2 or something like that, and they trade. Wow, you know, you're the strongest bird in heaven. Congratulations. So that being said, sometimes you just get no other options, and you're like, you could do worse than a garlic peacock that maybe is able to wipe their first unit that's particularly strong, and then the rest of the squad can battle it out. But I honestly think we're looking at like maybe a mid-C tier here, maybe somewhere around like here. We might have to speed up. I never thought it would happen, but but it's true. We might have to speed up the tier list, because when you look at the pictures, you're like, that's not that many. What is that, like 20? Then when you do it, you're like, holy crap, I got a lot to say. Now, penguin, I have overrated in the past. I now do not respect it as much. In principle, a penguin seems better than a monkey. Why would you give +2/+2 to 1 unit when instead you could give +1/+1 to 4 units, let's say hypothetically. But in practice, IMO, +2/+2 on a unit that you control is much better than +1/+1 on a bunch of units, several of which will probably be sold at some point, and thus you'll lose the benefit of the scaling that you gave them. I think that the penguin, this is controversial for sure, but I think it's a high C. It's really hard for me to put it here. I genuinely have lost so much of the faith that I previously had in wide scaling. Even the dragon, like a week and a half ago, probably would have been like S tier. Now I'm like, I can respect it, but I really feel like deep scaling is better. I forgot that the pig existed. I'm going to tell you, this is my straight up opinion. The pig is also unplayable. It's a 2/2 that does nothing. The extra 1 gold you get on the sell is not worth it. Because you don't want to sell your pig on like turn 2 or anything like that. You want to keep those units that you buy on the first turn to try to get pairs and bigger units that would actually give you a much better benefit. Now, the pig does really well, and chat's right on this one. The pig does very well if you have a dragon, or I guess a chicken, which allows you to then, for 1, scale everything. That being said, as a unit that you get early on its own merits, it's terrible. It's a 2/2 that does nothing in battle. It's much worse than a mosquito. It's not even close. I would say that it's better than horse, kind of. I think it's a D. All I can tell you is I think it's worse than horse. All I can tell you is that I played the game like a decent amount this weekend. And you got to remember, in the early shops, not many animals are unlocked, you know? You got ant, fish, beaver, otter. Maybe you're on pay to win. You got green beetle. You got red ladybug, horse, duck, pig. You're going to see, and bird. Okay, and bird. And cricket. So you're going to see some combination of these. There is almost never a reason you should feel forced to take a horse, a pig, or a duck. You have enough money to buy 3 units and get 1 reroll, okay? You might, in some circumstances, be forced into taking some of these units and trying to make the best of it. But a lot of the time, you can build with one reroll, you can build a good squad here. Yo. What? Chicken karage. Yo, thank you. Holy bursh. Hey, Tomo. Round 1, you got 3 gold left. Are you going pig or are you going cricket? Straight up, Richard. I mean, this is a difference of opinion, you know? I'm going cricket. But then I don't think ahead too much. Because the thing is, I mean, I don't want to sell my pig early enough to capitalize on the gold. I'm going to go hard for pairs. I'm going to put value on stats. I'm going to be like... that's the way I like to play early game. But I will acknowledge maybe you got some gigabrain Goodwill Hunting calculation going on where that takes you to... what, like 12 gold on turn 2, which then allows you to, you know, get 4 units or something like that, which, or you can buy like an early, you know, salad. I'm scared of your tactics in the game, just to be honest. I just run the same thing almost every time. Excuse me, Tomo, don't get in the courts, please. Don't get in the courts. Round 6, you got an 18-18 dog. Do you buy a cricket or a pig? If I need a space filler, I would buy a pig. Alternatively, I would prefer to maybe buy almost anything else. Poodle. Come on, buddy. Come on, Tomo. Poodle I haven't taken in a while. Is it +1/+1 or +2/2 to different tiers? The thing is, buddy, come on. It's +1/+1. And it's pay to win only, right? That would probably be why I haven't played it as much or used it as much. Okay, can I just like, hey Tomo, you want to say hi? Hello. Okay. I feel weird about it because I rated Penguin a little lower than people probably would have expected, but there is a difference, and this is why Poodle, I actually think you can put it in like, I would hesitate to put it in low A tier around like these. I would feel more comfortable maybe at the very tippy top of the B tier. It's so much easier to enable the Poodle to hit everything, or at least everything relevant, than the Penguin, which requires all the relevant units to get to level 2. So I think definitely you could love it, you can respect it. Puppy, I really like it, honestly. Now again, I didn't play any pay to win this weekend. I think if you get it early, it's incredible. If you get it slightly later, it's okay. And then late in the game, it's just total garbage. So I would probably feel comfortable putting this in the low A tier. But it does depend a lot on timing. It's more time dependent than most units. My son, I know. You're like, I haven't been here all day, but you can't be in the cords, okay? Can you jump up into the cat house? Thank you. Now, here's where we're going to blow some people's minds. I previously placed Rabbit, I think, in the D tier. I've been putting in free-to-play, been putting way more value on food build than I've ever done before in my life. And it's working. I probably hit a higher percentage of 10 tiers or 10 wins this weekend than I ever have in my entire life. Because in most of the builds that I'm trying to run lately, you get 2 to 3 free spaces. You can roll 2 rabbits, you know? Then you buy salad, and you're adding plus 3 HP to everything that gets a salad. Hey, Danny Kaza, thanks for the gifted subscriptions as well. Thank you. So for like a few turns, you can get brrr, 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 and the HP goes wild. You can then combine them, try to do something else, then you sell it later. The problem with the rabbit is that it sucks when you're trying to get, like, it's turn 3, you create your first level 2, and then it's a 3-2 rabbit, and you don't have the money to buy that and food. Then you're like, okay, that sucks. But I do like the rabbit more than I used to. I would say that it exists. For me, I think the low B tier is, we're in this calibration period where I previously thought it was unusable. This weekend, I take it every time. But it probably, in my opinion, will settle around here. But you gotta really go hard on it. If you buy it and then you're not intending to buy food, then just, cancel Christmas. Hold on, I'm gonna take a bite here. Oh, man. Chicken karaage. That's so good. Where's that from? It's so good. Bon appetit. Show it? Well, okay, look, I'll show it, but I'm going to be honest. It doesn't necessarily... Well, no, it looks fantastic. Kate, did you make this? It's unbelievable. That's S tier, man. It tastes like Family Mart chicken karaage, but good. Not like it's been sitting in the warmer, getting gummy all afternoon. It's like fresh. Man, that's delicious. Okay. I do have to say, okay, I genuinely 100% think that the rat is actually playable. I do not any longer think that it's the worst animal in the game. There are worse animals. I would even go so far as to say this weekend I probably lost more against the rat than I won against the rat. And I think that that doesn't mean that much, but I think what it means partly is that only people who are confident in their problem solving are comfortable running the rat, and they run it in appropriate situations. If you don't know what you're doing and you get a rat, there's a good chance the rat will actually screw you, but I think it's playable. But I think it's not something you necessarily build around. I think it's like a 1 to 2 round fill that maybe you put a cupcake on and nothing's chunking through your 8-9 early on. I think you put it at the front, you give it a little bit of food, then you sell it later. So I think I'm going to put this, like, honestly, I think it's probably right around here. I think it can work, man. But it's there's a perception problem too, right? When it loses, it's gonna look like you lost because of the rat, and then you sell it. But anyway, Rhino's kind of interesting. It has the opposite problem to a lot of the animals. A lot of the animals are okay to start with. Their level 2 is not that impressive. The Rhino is like, it's okay to start with. Its level 2 is amazing. It's like, you gotta get it. Its level 1 is not that impressive. So I think a Rhino and a Hippo have a lot of similarities. I would say you probably end up taking a Rhino much less often than a Hippo. Probably in the mid to low B tier, maybe around here. But it's fun. Level 2 is well worth getting. Breaks Melon Armor, which is a highly underrated use of this, and works pretty funny, not necessarily well, but is humorous when you have a tiger behind it. So I do like it, though. Rooster is probably the animal in the game that me and chat disagree with the most. They think it's S tier. I think it's merely good. And I think that for a lot of people, they would say Rooster is the best item or best animal in the game. Don't you dare put it anywhere below A. I mean, I really feel like for me, I would be considering putting this in the B tier. Like at high B. But I don't know. I just feel like I don't lose to Rooster very often. I mean, I guess the thing I would say is that when I see the opponent as a level 1 Rooster, I go, who gives a crap? Nobody cares. When I see a level 2 Rooster, I go, okay, it's time to lose. Like a level 1, usually you're going to, because it takes some time to get off the ground, usually you're going to kill a level 1 Rooster and also the chick that it spawns. And as a result, you trade one animal for one animal. Level 2, that's usually where it becomes a real problem. With that in mind, I'm comfortable. I'm willing to put it up in the A tier, okay? Where in the A tier? Certainly above the puppy. Put above the dragon. I'd probably feel comfortable right around here. That looks right to me. To me, this is my tier list. It's not like I'm going to title the video How to Get 10 Wins in Super Auto Pets every time. Oh. If you're watching this on YouTube. Brontosaurus, which is not actually your name, right? I can't remember what you are. When you buy food, get 1 gold back. You suck. You stink. Get out of here. Nobody. Sauropod, that's it. Yeah, not good. Its own stats are irrelevant, as all tier 6 stats are irrelevant. I do think, we've used you before, but there's so many other things I would rather have synergizing with a food build. Like in particular, if I could have a cat and a rabbit, that is better. Or how about 2 cats? Or how about 2 rabbits, for example? So I think it's pretty close to unplayable. Maybe like, maybe in this region right here. Sauropod cow, that would be fun. That would be fun. Scorpion, I might blow you away with this one. I think this is possibly one of the most controversial picks. I actually think that the Scorpion is an S tier animal. And the reason is complex. It took me a month to understand. What you do with a Scorpion is you don't buy it and use it every round necessarily. You build your run around funneling stats to a few units. The units that get the stats stick around forever. The units that give the stats tend to be dog water in their own mind or in their own right. A monkey, a penguin, a poodle, they're not accomplishing anything. So what you do is when you get to the point where you're like, now I want to pivot into just going for the win, you sell your monkey, you put a Scorpion at the front, and then you trade, as long as they don't have Melon Armor at the front, you trade their tier 1, frontline unit for your Scorpion most of the time. As long as you got to be careful, but I'm telling you, the Scorpion will hit much more often than it misses. You will, if you get the Scorpion out early enough, you will get it out before they have thought to put Melon Armor on their front unit. It's like the highest value 3 gold you can get in the game. I had a 10 win, because I think this applies multiple times, but I had a 10 win round this weekend. I think I rolled 2 Scorpions. I might have even rolled 3 Scorpions. Like, if you have two great units, you could fill the rest with Scorpions, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's the best thing you could do for 3 gold, I think, in the late game. I genuinely you're not always going to run it. You're not going to build around it. It's not meta-defining. But I definitely think that a Scorpion is like, it's insanely efficient in the late game. Anyway, Seal is horrible. I've tried to use it, especially as I have invested in food build more often. It doesn't do anything. It's bad. It's just it. I think it needs to show up earlier. If it showed up as a tier 4, then I could respect it. But a tier 5 is like, it's too hard. What does it do? When you feed it, it gives +1/+1 to 2 friends. But it starts kind of bad, mostly because its stats are not that amazing and it shows up late. And you got to feed the crap out of it. Most of the time, you would rather invest in, like, you know, by the time this shows up, you got like a 25-25. You'd rather keep investing food into the 25-25 than, you know, feed it to this 5-8 or whatever, and then he gives you 2 +1/+1s. Like, it's just, I think it's pretty close to unlose. I would rather have a dromedary. I might even rather have a dromedary in the late game, honestly. Shark, I think is a B tier. And I want to say A tier. It's a hard thing to quantify. But I feel like the shark goes in the B tier because it always ends up, it's enhanced by the very things it competes with. You need a fly. Well, you really benefit from a fly. You really benefit from a turkey. And then, like, your squad is very inflexible. You're kind of just letting it ride, which is fine, but I think it's good. It's like a nice addition, but I don't think it's that impressive in its own right, I guess. Ram is, okay, we got 20 minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. We got about a minute and a half per animal. That's not enough time, man. Okay, Ram, I think I overrated. I think it's good. It's very good if you have a dog. It's amazing when it gets shit out of a spider. But I think as a buy, it's not that impressive. I think it's a B tier. And I would probably maybe stick it around here. It's great when the spider spits it out. And it's a nice thing. It can keep you around to buy some time. You know, you can play it for 2 rounds and be happy with it. This, I hate to say it, okay? Shrimp Scampi is horrible. It's probably, it's probably like here, maybe here. But I do it all the time just because it's so much fun. It's just, it costs too much to get off. Like, I know you're telling me, brother, but no, it's like, it's a 2-1, so it sucks. It requires selling, which has an opportunity cost because you've already invested in the things that you're selling to replace them with garbage. But it does give you HP, which is worth something. But overall, like, I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's really hard. You're putting a lot of luck on your side. But if you get the RNG, then sure. But anyway. Shrimp is better than Mammoth, though. Honestly, I would put my profile up against your profile, just straight up. Just because you put a greater than sign and then thinking face, that's not an intellectual position. Back at Eden College, you would have been eaten alive in the debate club. Me and Bojo, we would have smoked you. You need some rhetoric to back up your argument, not merely emojis. Insubordinate and churlish. Skunk, overrated. But I underrated. I think maybe this is a little strange. I think it's kind of better when it's early. I think a 15 health unit going down to 10 helps you out a lot more than a 50 going down to 30. Mostly because the skunk will not be as good in the late game just on its own stats as well. I gotta be honest with you. I feel like it's like the Jeremy Clarkson meme, you know? Like when your 50-50 Melon Armor becomes a 50-30. You're like, oh no, well anyway, dunk, 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 free win, right? I honestly think it's also D tier. I think it's somewhere near the top of D tier, but I still like. There's an unplayable tier, which is like, right. That's the borderline right there. I think this is unplayability. So it's playable in my world, but it's pretty close to not being playable. Tier 2 reduces them by more. All you had to do was, spend 20 gold on the level ups plus the rerolls. And then, my 50-50 becomes a 50-13 that trades with your 50-50. The only difference is that instead of a 6-3 skunk, I got like let's just call it 50-50 caterpillar. Because I can make up the rules. Snail's really good. I would say when it works, it's like it's S tier when you consider it showing up. Early or late, for 2 gold to give everything a +2/+2 is pretty good. Then you gotta have its efficacy or less because you gotta lose in order to make it work. But I don't think this needs a buff at all. Like, I don't think it should work on draws. I think you gotta put it in like the A tier. I will make space to fit a snail for sure. And I definitely think it's like, it's not better than a monkey, to be honest with you. Should be more like, and this should be like, maybe like a snail would be more like something like that. You gotta love a snail. The only thing the snail is really like, its problem is not its stats. Its problem is that it's so conditional that it makes your shop worse. Like, you freeze it, you win the round, and then you're like, son of a bitch. I should never have frozen that. If you got the cojones to not freeze a snail when you're confident you're gonna win, then you're a better player than I am. I'm just gonna be honest. Okay, snake. Okay, we got 15 minutes. Snake is, I'm going with my heart here. Snake is actually an S tier. It is worth noting there are things that destroy it, particularly splash damage. That's bad. But I'm willing to accept the risks and do what I need to do to maybe scale it or something. It does so well behind a tanky unit. It does so well with a tiger behind it. It scales super nicely at level 2. It wins games against turkey tiger fly builds because it has a good chance to snipe those units at the back. Snake is really good. You can't always make it work, but that's not how I'm defining the S tier. But it does a great job. And it's like it was one of those rare animals. It specifically counters a build that's very popular in the meta, tiger, fly, turkey, etc., etc. Tiger, fly, turkey plus anything, really. But also, if they're running a different build, it still does it still handles itself, Its stats are not good, but it'll pop Melon Armor. It'll do some extra damage that makes it more likely that you win or trade, etc., etc. I think this snake is insanely good. Spider is basically up to you. I stopped taking it consistently because I got annoyed by the fact that much of my success was determined by RNG, and I'm not trying to say that I got worse RNG than anybody else. It just feels bad to have a spider do nothing as a 2/2 and then spit out a 2/2 that does nothing. And then you go up against somebody who's got like a 10-10 dog, and then a spider and a whale at the front. The whale eats the spider. It spits out a turtle. You kill the turtle. The whale goes buck wild on you with the melon armor. You kill the whale. It spits out a spider. Then you kill the spider. It spits out a ram. And you're just like, guess I'll just fucking die. Guess I'll just lose because of the spider difference. But I think it's good. Like, I hate to have it, but I also hate when my enemy has it. Like, I hate seeing this. So, I mean, I think you gotta consider it like at worst, it's like at the high C tier. Swan is an interesting one. The best thing about the Swan is not that it gives you the gold. The best thing about the Swan is that it's a 3-4 early. You can really do great stuff with the Swan. I've run some 10-win Swans into the late game, but that's kind of like irrelevant because I've also, at this point, probably run almost every animal into 10 wins just due to the law of large numbers. I think it's tough. It's tough. I got to consider it maybe in the mid B. The stats are amazing, and a free reroll is nice. It does well at level 2. Running 2 of them early is very doable and also pretty common. 2, 3, 4s, turn 2, not bad. Not bad at all. That's about all I got to say, though. You know, it's not that exciting apart from that. T-Rex is hard to not put it in the S tier. I don't know how much explanation this would need. I think we're probably looking at something like that right now. Well, no, come on. Ant, best... Well, I don't know. Maybe Ant is the best unit in the game. The most likely to contribute to your win when it shows up? Yeah. So a T-Rex is wonderful. I don't love wide scaling. And you're right to call me out on that because I said I prefer deep scaling. The thing is, T-Rex is wide and deep. He be waxing it and taxing it and working it all around till that booty starts making that clapping sound, which is cool, but your friends are chilling in the other room. In this situation, what do? You know what I'm talking about? We don't have time for this? We always have time to talk about the rap song Freaks of the Industry by Digital Underground. It's a classic song. Okay, sorry, we don't have time for this. Sorry, I'm being told we don't have time for this. Why T-Rex over Dragon? Well, T-Rex has double the effect, which is that it gives +2/+2 to everything instead of +1/+1 to everything. It requires 1 less capacity because it does it all by itself. It does require you to save 3 gold. It's not that big of a deal. Anyway, it doesn't buff itself. I know, like, you live in a fantasy world. If you are in a position where all 5 of your units need to be 50-50, you fucked up. You should have won earlier. You shouldn't have bought all the damn ducks. I turned straight into George Costanza's dad there. You should have won a round in the early game so you didn't have to, fight it out with 5 50-50s at round 23, okay? To get 10 wins, you don't need 5 50-50s. You need like 2 40-40s, okay? That's it. At 2 40-40s at the right time. Maybe 1 Scorpion in front of them, then you win. It's that easy. Okay, Tabby Cat, bad. Bad. Shows up fairly late for its stats. It's a 4/3. Gives all other animals +1 attack. Literally nobody cares. You might even don't care, didn't ask. Plus, you might even be worse than duck. Attack. It's better to have attack than nothing. But attack is not that valuable. I think it's pretty close to unplayable tier. Tiger is just a given. Like, I think you got to put it in the high A tier. The only reason it's not higher than that is because it does nothing by itself. And there are a decent number of squads where you don't have anything that a tiger benefits from. Like, this has happened to me a lot lately. You have 2 units that are good just because of their stats. The actual effect is useless. Let's say you got a good fish and a good mosquito, right? You got a monkey, you got a rabbit. You're not doing anything with a tiger. You're not going to buy a tiger just to give a +2/+2 extra on the monkey or something like that. which I don't even, it only works in battle. So just like shoving it into a build doesn't work. But when it works, it pops off to the extreme for sure. You know, you've persuaded me. I'm going to move it up one just because I apply the same logic to the tiger that I applied to the cow. When I see one, I always pause. And I always go, is there any way that I can fit this in? Because if I can fit it in, it's going to be incredible for me. And if it doesn't fit, fine. We'll roll past it. We'll take something else. But it's always worth the consideration. Tropical fish is funny because HP is precious, but 1 HP is like on 2 units is worth nothing. Like I think it's not unplayable, but close. Like, I think it would, you'd probably have to place it. I mean, it sounds messed up, but like, I think I would rather have a giraffe, even though a giraffe only gives +1/+1 instead of, you know, this is +0/+2. But like, the way that this also like is so precious with the positioning is messed up. Like, this is like you're throwing like a potato chip wrapper into your squad. You're just messing the whole place up. Turkey is very good. I would put it maybe at the tippy top of A tier. It's better than fly. It's much better than shark. It's like the, well, you can kind of use shark without fly turkey, but turkey also just works okay by itself. Like, you can make a turkey build work without building around it. It's just like a nice enabler. Everyone knows it's good. I gotta be honest with you as well. I didn't promise I would put it in S to Richard. I promised it would be higher than fly, and it's higher than fly. Turtle might be the most controversial pick of the game. I think it's the exact borderline between A and S. For so many reasons. It's a 2/4 that does nothing. I don't even, in my eyes, that's a 0/0. It's a wall. But 4 cost for a Melon Armor before Melon Armor becomes available in the shop is insane value. It's one of the only, like, apart from like getting ready to dump your ant after it's already done great stuff for you, it's the only good like 4 cost pill in the game, in my opinion. Maybe if you have an ox, you could change that. It is like if you end up fucking up too badly and your caterpillar has not gotten you to 10 wins yet, you just throw a turtle in front of it. You're gonna win. It scales insanely well at future levels. It fits into it makes every squad better. It almost fits into every squad, I think. Again, because being able to survive 1 extra hit doubles your damage. It's really good. Like, I don't always, and the fact is, not only can you like buy it and use it, but if you're like using a pill, you're like, okay, who gives a crap? I use a pill and then I pivot. Like, you don't have to sell it for no value. You get value. It's great. Man, we're going to finish right on time. This is crazy. Okay, whale is overrated. It can be fun, but I think it's a little overrated. I don't think it's C tier. I think it's like mid B. And part of that is because, I mean, a 2/6 with like a piece of equipment can do some good stuff. Guaranteeing 2 triggers is fun. It works super well with the deer, but it takes up too much space. But also, it's the real benefit here is that it triggers feints as well, which can be it can guarantee that it's a little bit more useful, like long term. And then the worm, I think I said, who up playing with they worm? What did I say? I've been getting 10 baggers all night. The worm is goated. I do need to say, okay, the worm is not goated, but it's close. I would put this, I put it ahead of puppy. Because even like the puppy, if you get it later than you want to get it, it's too late. The worm, if you get it later than you want to get it, it can still catch up. There's a good chance you can get it to catch up. Isn't worm just the worst seal? My hands are shaking. I'm falling to my knees in the Albuquerque desert like Walter White. My glasses are shakily being taken off my head. I'm falling to my side because they just shot Hank. Seals, tier 5. Worms, a tier 4. Seal, when fed, gives random friends +1/+1. Worm, when fed, gives itself +1/+1. Changes things drastically. 3 minutes to make last-minute adjustments. I will never apologize for Breaking Bad spoilers. That shit ended like 7 years ago. It's worth your getting spoiled for the people that took the time to watch the show to get the joke and laugh and go, ha, 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 ha. Thank you for your sacrifice. Plus, he just got shot in the knee. He was fine. Okay. Do I want to adjust anything? I mean, honestly, I just spent 3 hours very meticulously poring over the list. I do not think I need to go over it with a fine-tooth comb and be like, things need to move. I'm dying at the people who are like croc apologists, man. Like there's a couple controversial things, okay? People are saying Rooster should be higher. We agree to disagree, but I respect your opinion. I've run into a lot of Roosters. Sometimes I beat them, sometimes they beat me. I might be underrating it. I'll acknowledge I might be underrating the Rooster. The crab is insane. Crab behind your best unit with meat on it will win you 3 to 4 matches. 3 to 4 rounds, I should say. The crab it's insane. You can roll it for a long, long time. It gets a ton of value. If you're buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, then you got a 3-3 crab, you put it behind like a 3-4, you deserve to lose. But if you got an 8-8, it's round 3, you put a crab behind it, you put some meat on the crab. Now you got an 8-8 with a 5-8 behind it. It goes crazy, man. Croc, though, I don't see it, man. You know what I think happens? I think a lot of people don't invest in their early game. They draw. Then it's match 22, and their crocodile kills a turkey, and as a result, they get to 6 wins, and they go, "Thank God for crocodile. It's so good." If you play the game on my level, your crocodile, you know, it shoots my 2/2 monkey that already got its benefit, and then I wipe your squat. I wipe with probably something disrespectful, like a 25-25 mosquito. It would just be embarrassing. Buffalo is just a bad monkey? Listen, you piece. You put the buffalo in position 1 when you've already got a level 3 otter, and then you put a monkey in position 5, and then you get 2 buffs. This is not an either-or situation. This is a yes and, like improv. Plus, it's below monkey in the first place. You piece? Insubordinate. Anyway, slash marker. My time is up. Mr. Madison, that is without a doubt the most rambling and incoherent thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Everyone in the audience is stupider for having been here today. May God have mercy on your soul.